One of the things I do is help business owners prioritize and work out there's only 1, 2, maximum of 3 things we should be focusing on, or even we can be. And I say you can't chase too many rabbits. If you start trying to chase all of them, we end up going home hungry. So if we select some targets and a time frame to do them, so my job is to keep them on rails. And if they go, what about that thing? No. We're going to get this one sorted first, and then we can look at that later, because their busyness can lead to distraction. A lot of business owners, they've become a business owner because they want to do things their way. They want to be the boss. They want to take the direction. And sometimes it can take us left and right. And you can be in business for 10 years and you haven't progressed forward as much as you could have if you just sort of stayed the course. And it's hard because we're human. We like to chase various rabbits.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ways to Wealth. Today I'm joined by Jon Randles. Jon, why don't you give us the TLDR on who you are and what you get up to on a day-to-day?
Sure. I am a business coach, so I work with business owners to help them get the most out of their business. The way I got here is I'm a current owner of a marketing company that I co-founded in 2009.
Right.
And we, went up and down, booms and busts. Very much we're in a period of really good clients, making good money and not keeping any of it, and sort of hurtling towards in the red. And then we couldn't afford a business coach or advisor at the time, but we couldn't afford not to. And working with one became a real catalyst for our business, that in 12 months we went from 6 figures in the red to 6 figures in our bank account. It became a profitable business, so I could step out of the day-to-day about 3 years ago now. And when I was working out what should I do, the business coach we worked with said, you should get into this, you'd love it, you've got the background. I used to be a business banking manager. I used to run a language school in Japan, so I've got a training background, and so love working with business owners and, again, helping them reach their potential.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, that's great. I mean, good TLDR.
Thank you.
So you mentioned some of your kind of past careers and stuff. Like, did you always know you were going to get into business ownership?
That's a really good question. My degree was in literature and classics, and so I was anti-business.
Yep.
I thought all business was Nike and sweatshops and stuff like that. And then just as I was finishing my degree, I started working at the second Hell Pizza. So they had their first store, then they opened their second store in Wellington while I was studying. And I was working with these 2 young, cool business owners, and it made me think, oh my God, can business be cool? Like, can it be fun? We had a really good team, people were excited about working and coming to work. And it really shifted my understanding of business and what a business owner was.
So what was the archetype behind business ownership? It wasn't just, about extracting, but it was about kind of the pursuit of what you were working on and the culture and vibe around that.
And the culture, I think that's the big one that I didn't understand before, that you could build a culture and, again, have fun. Like, you're building an enterprise. And then I started to think about, you're building an enterprise to support your workers. You're giving them work, you're giving them jobs, you're supporting your customer base with, good food. And so, it really triggered something in me. So I went to Japan because there's no job at the end of a literature and classics degree.
Okay, good to know.
Yes, if anyone's thinking about that in the future. So I got selected. I worked hard to get selected into a Japanese government program to take grads to Japan. Yeah. And it was teaching English in schools. It was teaching communities about other countries. And it was there I was starting to get letters from IRD saying you owe $38,000 for your literature and classics degree.
Ah, right.
Because in my day...
Because if you'd been out the country...
I just took money out of you could take your student loan out of an ATM machine.
Oh, yeah.
In my day. And I'd buy CDs and posters. I knew nothing about money. I didn't understand it. I went to Greece at the end of my degree, put that on a student loan. It was part of a field trip. And then I got this letter and I was like, I need to start learning about money. And a friend of mine was getting involved in, he was at uni in Melbourne. He was going to buy an investment property in New Zealand.
Right.
And I thought, oh, how grown up are you? Oh my God, I need to learn about this. So I started reading books about property investment. And then together we bought an investment property, and then we went and did a deal that took sort of 12 months or so to come to fruition, and we made $100,000 net profit. So I was able to pay off that student loan in one go. Then I decided I was going to become a property magnate. Moved back from Japan to New Zealand. Yeah. And did some courses, did some learning. Yeah. Went out and bought 5 or 6 at one point investment properties. And it was all positive cash flow, money was coming in, everything was wonderful. And then the GFC happened this must have been 2007, 2008. Yeah. And so these assets became more like a noose. Toxic, yeah. And the money that was coming in turned around and started going out because the banks changed the rules, the government changed the rules. Yeah, and rates. So we were highly geared, so we had to start paying principal and interest and all sorts. So it took years to divest out of those investments. So yeah, I got a bit burnt by that. Yes. Yeah, I mean, like it's like leverage, right? It cuts both ways, and I think the real misunderstanding in kind of, I think, financial literacy and that kind of space is like humans are not very good at calculating intuitively the impacts of interest rate changes, and a lot of products, especially in the financial industry that we consume, are extremely complex. Yep. Therefore, there are always things that you could miss, right? But that was an extraordinary event, of course, and a lot of people went through a similar
Smarter
experience.
people than I,
who were in that same world, lost their shirts.
Yeah. And what was the big lesson from that? Was there a lesson?
That's a good question. Let me just check if I learnt one. There was definitely lessons. One was, so I've always had a high risk level, like I've been okay with risk tolerance. And it just it taught me, just check on the other side, what could be the downfalls, because I'm quite optimistic. I'm like, it's probably all going to be fine.
Have you heard of inversion?
In what way?
So it's a principle that a load of people use, probably intuitively, but it's something that Charlie Munger would speak about a lot. It was about, he would think about something, right? A potential investment, a decision, etc. And he's like, if I wanted to destroy this.
Yes, I've heard of this concept.
What would that look like?
Yes, yeah. I think he did something, didn't he? Was that part of World War II that he looked at? I think he was part of the US forces or something, and thought about how could I break up our plan or something like that.
Well, yeah, because he wasn't on the field in the World War II, but he rose through the ranks very quickly, and he was essentially predicting the weather. Yep. And strategic monitoring around that during World War II. So he would have definitely learned a lot of, and I think if you look at the underpinnings, a lot of his learnings kind of seem to stem from that military start. But then he obviously moved out. He was a lawyer. He ran a law firm for a very long time, and then got into investments, etc., etc. And the rest is history, right? But
I really like that idea, and I would like to say that that's something I should and
would do apply in the future. Yeah. And you can do it every day. Right?
Yeah.
But it's a habit. It's like, do I think that? Did I think that?
Yep.
But yeah, it's something that you learn the most from when things don't go well, and you learn the most about what you can tolerate.
Yes. So I talk. So again, I'm a business coach, business advisor. and a current business owner. And so I talk about having the scars of a small business owner. Like I've had those 2 a.m. thoughts. I've had those stresses, that bandwidth that I ran a workshop on Wednesday, and I was saying to the business owners in the group, you know, often 90% of our bandwidth is taken up by our business. We might have kids and family and sporting events and all these things, but there's always this little pressure or this stuff going on. And so, because I can relate, like one of the first things I try to do with my clients is reduce that bandwidth, reduce that noise. And I say that worrying is not strategizing. And I used to think about that. I used to ruminate on all these problems and issues, thinking, I'll think my way out of it. But worrying is not strategizing. Strategizing is getting a piece of paper, writing down what the problem is, coming up with solutions.
That's right.
And then an action point. So sitting around watching your kid play football and thinking about stuff and stuff like that, that doesn't help anyone, let alone your poor kid playing football.
Yeah, no, that's that's definitely going to be a big one for all business owners, right? Like I was talking about it in a previous podcast actually, kind of earlier, and I was like, and we were talking about the comfort of busyness, busy work, that really is derived from this kind of overthinking, too much noise, not enough signal. And potentially a natural bit of human kind of...
Because we think we're doing something. We think we're fixing it. Oh, if I'm
moving, I must be moving forward. I'll be closer to being out of this issue. Not always the case. Now, it's interesting, right? Because I think there's also a dynamic of, you know, actually continuing to make incremental steps forward is an incredible way to compound.
Yes.
And you don't see the changes in the moment, but if you are doing the inputs that you need, then that's amazing. However, busy work is not necessarily going to solve your problems. And are you actually using busyness to put your head in the sand?
As a distraction, for sure. One of the things I do is help business owners prioritize and work out there's only 1, 2, maximum of 3 things we should be focusing on, or even we can be. And I say you can't chase too many rabbits. If you start trying to chase all of them, we end up going home hungry. So if we select some targets and a time frame to do them in, so my job is to keep them on rails. And if they go, what about that thing? No. We're gonna get this one sorted first, and then we can look at that later. Because their busyness can lead to distraction. A lot of business owners, they've become a business owner because they want to do things their way. They want to be the boss. They want to take the direction. And sometimes it can take us left and right and left and right. And you can be in business for 10 years. And you haven't progressed forward as much as you could have if you'd have sort of stayed the course. And it's hard because we're human. We like to chase various rabbits. It's fun. There's always a shinier rabbit.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so and what I guess like what got you to start your first business after that? How long after the kind of, what did you do? What was your reaction, I guess, first to the GFC and having to do that divestment? What did that look like? Did you have did you have employment in that time as well?
So I was working full time. As so I was I'd moved back from Japan. I wanted a job in property because I was going to be a property magnate. So I wanted to learn more. I didn't want to be a real estate agent because I had a young family. And my next door neighbour said, why don't you come and work at a bank? She worked at a bank. And I was like, I have never thought about working in a bank. Again, I was a literature and classics student, ex-hippie, anti all that kind of thing. And I thought, really? And firstly, I didn't think that they would want me. But I had all this property knowledge. And I could speak about interest rates and all this kind of stuff and help people with mortgages, which is what the bank was looking for. So I could come in at a personal manager level didn't come in at a teller level because I could speak to this kind of stuff. And so that helped. And then GFC happened, and I went, what do I do now? Business. I'm going to learn about business.
Right.
And so I moved into business banking. I took a step back from a managerial position to an assistant position to learn about the business side. And from there, with the same business partner in my property world, together, so he had come back to New Zealand and was doing an MBA at Auckland Uni. And so we were coming up with what kind of business ideas could we try that's going to become something. And we had all these ideas. We had a Thai furniture restaurant. We had an evening language school. We had the idea of My Food Bag a couple of years before My Food Bag, and we started to research it. We even bought a domain name of mosh.co.nz because it sounded like Nosh, and Nosh was doing well at the time. So we thought food, Mosh, okay. And what we didn't have was all the investment that was required and all the infrastructure. And so after a while it became too hard basket because we'd seen it in Japan. That was a popular thing.
Right.
And then my business partner in the last year of his MBA was like, let's look at social media because there's this big wave coming. This is back in 2009. And we thought, let's make a business that allows companies to use these platforms to speak to their customers without sounding corporate. So help them communicate on these platforms.
Yeah.
So we needed a name, and we already had a domain of Mosh, so we just used that.
Yeah.
Hell Pizza was our first client,
right?
Because I had the relationship from back in the day.
Yeah.
Who'd then, they'd then gone on to become a franchise kind of powerhouse.
Yeah.
And so, we were one of the early agencies, if you like, to kick off in that sort of social media space. And Mosh has been going since 2009. So what are we? This is the 17th year.
Long time.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And when did you decide, I'm going to start? Well, I mean, we heard about that a little bit before, right? With, I guess what got you there was your coach.
So we went for years, and as I was saying, businesses, they can go for years back and forth, side to side, without really progressing.
Yeah.
So we had really strong clients because we were early in the space. Airbnb, Panasonic, Fletcher Building, all these good clients.
Yeah.
But we weren't profitable. We weren't making profits at the other end because we would ramp up and we would bring on resource, and resource for us was humans, and humans are expensive.
Yeah.
And we just weren't able to keep the money.
Right.
So we had to make some drastic changes.
As the market ebbed and flowed, basically.
Yeah, yep. And it was on us as, us as directors, not really stopping and thinking, are we profitable? We just kept running forward on growth.
Yeah. Am I doing more clients? Am I making more on the top line?
Yes, yeah.
And I've got to grow. I've got to spend to grow kind of vibe.
And so the person who came in to help us, he didn't know anything about our industry.
Right.
So I work with industries from a hydraulic engineering company to a fencing business to a brand agency, digital performance agency, to like a lot of areas I don't have a background in.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a magic wand, and this is like our guy. He sort of had, his tools were a spotlight and a mirror.
Yeah, right.
And shining a light.
That's a good analogy.
What aren't you doing? What are you not looking at? What don't you know? What do you know but you're not doing?
Yeah.
And then holding up the mirror saying, are you going to do something about it?
Yeah.
And again, it was he didn't do anything. He just shone a light and kept us focused on those one rabbits at a time. And yeah, how long ago? And then we became profitable. We're able to pay dividends to the shareholders. And then my business partner and I were doing some planning. This would have been in November, maybe 4 years ago, just passed.
Yeah.
And we're mapping out the following year.
Yep.
And we drew an org chart on the whiteboard.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't know. And they were just, circles of positions. And I was like, I don't know if we need this guy anymore.
Yeah,
and that was me.
right.
So I rubbed out my own job, and my business partner was saying, are you ready to step away? And I was like, I am, man. 15, 14 years. I had gone through a couple of anxiety attacks during that period.
Yeah.
I crashed a Lime scooter at 25k, put my head into the concrete, and had pretty much a 2-year brain injury.
Right. That's no good when you've got stress in the mix as well, right?
Totally. And it brings, concussions bring anxiety and stress back up.
Yeah, right. It recreate,
Yeah, because I dealt with the previous anxiety. I've got a couple of tattoos here to mark that.
Right.
And felt cool. I'd gotten through that. And then bang, straight back into that dark, frightening place. So I've had a journey. I've had a journey.
Yeah. Okay. And then you decided that was the case. And then how did you guys plan for making that happen?
So we had strong staff. And again, this is what I tell my clients is we want staff to be stepping up, not just turning up. And ideally, before someone has a big crash or gets hit by the bus, being hit by the bus.
Classic one.
So we want to get our staff to be doing that before a big event. So because we'd gone through the big event, the staff had stepped up. So my business partner did really well about taking people on the journey. And so, we had strong people, and to give them some space was part of the idea of me sort of moving out. And one of my role was, sales and bringing in the dollars and the clients. And I was good at it. There was no way that they could be as good as me at doing it. And then I stepped away and revenue went up.
Right.
And I was like, oh, maybe they'll do it a different way, but they can still do it. Right. So that was quite a good learning, because a lot of business owners, it's hard to let go. And so no one can do it as well as me.
Yeah.
But if we give them space, if we give them opportunity, if we give them responsibility, people will step up, and they might do it differently, but give them the space and they might just surpass all expectations.
Yeah, makes total sense. Yeah, interesting. And do you still kind of have a shareholding in... Yeah, so you do still have a shareholding in Mosh?
Yeah, and so my business partner who runs it is my close friend from high school. And so we were doing monthly sort of shareholder director meetings.
Yeah.
And then sort of moved out to quarterly ones. Yeah. And now we'll catch up on the phone in between drives. We caught up over Christmas. So it's quite good for the friendship to have come back stronger, because we're not necessarily in the business together.
Yeah.
I think that's something I've recognised over the last little while.
Yeah.
So that's also cool as part of that journey, because it is a journey, not a destination, as they say.
And so now you're kind of into the swing of things with coaching. You've built up some equity in your business, etc. What to you then looks like success in the next 5 years?
So I also went through a separation. And so I...
that was before you got out the business?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, it was before.
Right.
And so I'm now remarried.
Right.
And I've got a almost 2-year-old. He's 2 next week. And so we live in an apartment in the city. It's north facing. It looks out over the harbour. See the Sky Tower. People come over for the fireworks. See the harbour bridge. It's 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and I want to get like a 3-bed. If we could do it in the same complex, that would be amazing. I'd never move.
Right.
3-bedroom, and yeah, if we're able to do that, my goal is to just not have a big mortgage. I don't want to be beholden, so I can move and try things. So again, I could step out of my salaried position. My wife just left her salaried role end of last year to come and work with me in my coaching business. And because our mortgage isn't huge, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
So I guess success would look like we have the apartment. There might be another member in the family. We'll see. Touch wood. Don't tell anyone. And I'm involved in another startup business that is quite exciting. So I've sort of divvied off a day a week to focus on that. And then so from a financial perspective, the focus has been on bringing the mortgage down, and then the bigger place, and then again re-looking at investments going out. So getting into shares, getting into those kind of opportunities. I still feel burnt from my property adventure.
I think you were just kind of one cycle earlier than what a lot of people are now dealing with.
Yes, agree.
And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about kind of what is true equity growth. We are Kiwis, but we consume a hell of a lot of US dollars.
Yep, okay.
And my property price can go up, but in real terms, my wealth has decreased.
Interesting.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that a lot of, and we've released a net worth tracking and planning tool, which is free forever.
Okay.
That's our commitment to that functionality. Now, we obviously, have a clear monetization strategy around the entire business, but in terms of good financial planning and tracking and knowing where you're at and knowing what your assets are about and being able to do different scenarios, we think everyone should be able to do that. And perhaps a spreadsheet is not the best long term.
Yes.
So we have that tool, and it's also, which is very important to us, investment agnostic. So you can bring even though we compete with Sharesies, you can bring your Sharesies account in. So it doesn't matter. You've got all your view in one place.
That's cool. Can you email it to me after when we've
totally. I'd love for you to have a test drive with it. But I don't know where I was going to. So about the burnt thing. I've realised recently, I would say more so than ever, is that nowadays you have to be opinionated and you have to build frameworks and principles if you want to stand out, especially even in software, because the cost of delivering software is going down. So really how you think and what you think and how you execute and how you let people execute is going to be really defining for businesses and startups, right, and institutions. And the cool thing about, one of the cool things about the net worth tracker is that we have this shelter component in the expense section. And it allows you to go and actually do real calculations of renting versus buying. And if you're an investment property investor, you can also have all your liabilities in there. You can have all your properties in there with the equity. You can know exactly what your annual interest cost is. You know all these things. And I understand why you're feeling burnt still. But
I'm also well aware. So having young children. So I was a young dad. So I've got a son from that previous marriage. He's now 26.
Yeah, right. Well,
so I'm looking at that boy and then this new boy.
Yeah.
And thinking I'm not going to build wealth out of an apartment. From a an asset growth perspective.
No, it's a convenience, it's certainty.
Again, it's a wonderful lifestyle. Like, I really like it.
That's right. It's a lifestyle choice.
100%.
And it was sold as an investment for a long time for a lot of people, right?
Yes, 100%. That's right. So I love it, but is it the best course for future wealth for here? So I'm going to have to be looking at, if I want to keep that, that's not going to be, the family home won't be the wealth asset.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to look externally at other ones, and that might be in property in another sense.
Yeah, it could be in different types of property, and it wasn't really necessarily property that gets people in trouble, it's the servicing. It's always leverage, and actually humans. Think of actually 2021 era where lots of startups got funded. They grew their teams out extremely big. I think of, a bunch of financial companies that did that. And then, because sentiment changed and their investor base changed the way they were thinking and how confident they were then obviously scrutinized for spending so much. Even though 2 weeks prior, and the Sharesies founders talked about this, about kind of being really successful, being encouraged to actually spend, and then the market changed, and then that had impacts. Even though 2 weeks prior, the kind of sentiment may have actually been different.
Yeah,
and I think about that a lot from a startup sense, because this is my second startup. And ultimately, you never want to be the Titanic that can't turn the ship out of the way.
Yes.
And that always comes down to liabilities. But because of our financial well-being consultations and such we have seen time and time again, it's not how much you earn that determines how successful you are, it's how much liability you've signed yourself up for. And in some cases, it's really interesting stuff like a revolving credit on a mortgage and income protection. But they bought both of the products for the same reason, which was, I'm uncertain about my income, or I'm nervous, or I want a backup. But then you didn't realize that you're actually paying for it twice.
Yes, yeah.
And it's a lot of these things that I find fascinating in finance. So that's really interesting. So you think you'll kind of just like spend some time thinking about the asset classes? What are you thinking in terms of that? Like, do you have an idealistic way of thinking about it, or are you kind of pragmatic and not that excited about it? You think of kind of the Josh Conrys of the world, invested in a lot of startups, et cetera, it's interesting when you have a alternate, I would call it almost an alternate asset view. And actually the last podcast that I had, we were talking about this, and I've been thinking about doing a TikTok video on this, about do what I say, not what I do, financial advice. I'm kind of repeating, hopefully people don't listen to the same podcast back to back, but financial advisors that I know and respect have very interesting personal asset allocation versus what they recommend. Sure. And then also, you've got the Buffetts of the world that recommend, or say, go in the S&P 500 and get back to work. Which is, it's fair, and he loves the US, so it makes sense. But if you actually look at his actions, including even debt, now they interestingly found a hack around debt, because they didn't need debt. They had their insurance businesses with the float that was basically able to give them all of the benefits of debt without any of the downsides. Right, okay. And if you ever go and read Buffett's essays and then Charlie Munger's biography, you'll learn a lot about how they did it, and how they actually, even though they're very much against debt, how they managed to find a hack, essentially, to get all the benefits of leverage and debt with none of the downsides. Yeah, right. So super interesting. If you've got billions, it's probably something you can do. Well, who can build a float? Who can build this treasure trove of capital that you can basically freely invest however you like, because the people that are giving you the premium aren't going to need that premium maybe ever, because it's health insurance and car insurance. So the everyday people cannot do that. It's a little bit like Ray Dalio being like, oh well, you should have 15 uncorrelated asset classes. And I'm like, well, even if you've got $5 million, like, how is that actually applicable, appropriate, or really executable for the average, relatively wealthy individual?
And just back to your point about financial advisors advising one thing, doing something themselves, do you think that that could come down to my professional eyes are here, and then my personal biases and my own thought process and my childhood and my parents' attitude to money?
Or I can beat the market and my clients can't.
Yeah, or I'm smarter than that.
I don't actually think it's that. I think there's a lot of career risk in it, right? And also, I don't think that financial advice has the framework that they're operating in deals to non-linear thinking and decision making. I think the financial advice is inherently designed currently in its current system to be connected to recommending product. And if you've got an alternate asset kind of portfolio, there's probably not a function which an advisor could even advise in that, because the investor might not even be eligible.
Sure.
But the second is there might not even be a way that they could monetize it. And because financial advice is very much around, I recommend you a product, and that's my advice, and you buy that product, and then I've given you advice, right? Doesn't really, in its current state, take into account other asset classes that these financial advisors might be getting exposure to.
Yes.
Because there might not be a product wrapped that they can then go, oh, I've got a way to monetize this, I've got a way to advise this, I've got a way to build this into a financial plan with the customer. So I think it's a little bit of that. I don't think it's necessarily like always my own biases and I can win. I think it's more like the good ones are thinking a bit more about actual allocation decisions more than reading some pamphlets and being like, okay, this is a growth, this is a growth product, and I should recommend this to people that have got more than 12 years or whatever of to retirement. They're thinking about, okay, how am I going to get a return, right? So I think I guess it's the framework of what, like, kind of how financial advice is administered, and for some reason a lot of financial advisors seem to have quite a lot of exposure to Bitcoin.
Yep.
Why is that? And then why don't they recommend it? I mean, those are questions, right? I don't know whether anything either is right or wrong, but I ask the question to myself, like, why did I'm notoriously not too interested in Bitcoin personally. I like businesses.
Okay.
I get the trade. I think the trade makes sense.
Do you think it's the volatility that might scare them to recommend it?
Oh, yeah.
Someone's going to pick up the phone at 2 a.m. and go, fucking Bitcoin's down, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, totally, right? And that's the appeal and what's done very well in New Zealand, right? Private debt, private equity and venture, and property. Oh, and then businesses, right? What is the one characteristic that all of those have? I'll tell you.
Please.
Is that they're all illiquid.
Okay.
And most of them, apart from the SMEs, property, it depends if you're doing rentals or not. So New Zealanders seem to have a bias towards basically illiquid assets and assets that pay a coupon. So term deposits is also big. Not getting enough on like cash is very common, but we've got $130 billion in Australian banks not getting the interest it should get.
I did read that. Yep.
Yeah. So there's a construction decision that the kind of cumulatively has appeared right across the country.
When I was in my banking days, term deposits were massive. For us to get in, keep them in, call pricing, can we do this to get this money or keep this money? Yeah. And
then you go second order thinking, right? You go, okay, makes sense. Okay, first order thinking, it makes sense. Why does it make sense? Well, in the 80s, people took equity out of their homes and bought into a stock market that then crashed.
Yeah.
So what is it about highly liquid assets that makes Kiwis feel uncomfortable? it's the mark-to-market valuing. So as an investor that's invested quite broadly and is fascinated by finance and business and products, volatility in essence is actually not a problem. You've just got to understand what the price change means. The price change means that no one's buying today and everyone's trying to sell, right? So you can always buy, but you can't always sell because in a liquid auction-based market, unlike property, unlike venture, unlike term deposits, etc., there might not be any buyers in the market today.
Yes.
And that volatility doesn't necessarily mean that that asset is more risky. I can tell you that I would rather personally own Google than most, if not all, government bonds or startups, right? But the volatility on those bonds and that startup might not be as high from a price change perspective because no one's coming and pricing startups every day. No one's coming and pricing your house every day.
Yep.
No one's actually accurately pricing private equity necessarily. So, like, volatility is the price you pay for, like, optionality. And, you know, you've seen Bitcoin do very well but have huge amounts of volatility.
Yep.
So I think risk is misunderstood. Volatility is a function of how liquid a product is in many cases, and that's why you have this dynamic with Bitcoin where it's extremely volatile. Now, in the same vein, I'm not saying, oh, well, that's the superior asset because it has the best returns. I actually have an issue with it because it's not productive. It's just a pet rock potentially, just like in essence gold is in many ways.
Yep.
Right? Doesn't mean I won't allocate to those asset classes ever.
It doesn't have the utility.
Doesn't have the utility that I'm comfortable with because I like businesses that produce something. Because then I know that it doesn't matter if I'm trading in US dollars, New Zealand dollars, whatever. We can trade in shells. If if eccuity is providing a good service and people are paying for whatever, then that's cool. Like, I'm good with that. If Google has a great diversified conglomerate of business assets that are potentially the best business assets in the world, then maybe that's great, and I don't care if they have to one day invoice in shells. That's kind of how I think about it, but I think what growing in business, right, you know, the scars and everything, I think you just have to keep your mind open and be willing to say, you know what, I had a view on Bitcoin. I used to have a very negative view on Bitcoin. But central banks have continued to undermine and act irresponsibly in a fiscal manner. I have to, if I'm not ignorant if I don't want to be too egotistical to say, if I wasn't wrong, I'm at least understanding the trade. Now, you know, like, you have to be willing to go, you know what, I've changed my mind, and actually doesn't matter that yesterday I felt this way, because now I have thought and I have examined and I'm now deciding with new information today that actually my view has changed.
And that's where I provide value with my clients, to be that other perspective. And I think having an external person providing an external viewpoint, I think, can make such a big difference. And my role is cheaper than getting a business partner. So if you sold your business, like if two people, one sold his business for $1 million, he's the sole director and shareholder, that could be life-changing money. You know, that he could do a lot with that. If you've got another business that sells for $1 million and there's 3 shareholders,
it's different. Yeah, it's a deposit.
It's it's not even going to cover a lot of people's mortgages.
Yeah.
So I can, and someone in my situation, you know, I'm not saying people use me, but finding an external sounding board who is, and not your mates at the pub, but someone who's on the journey. So I meet my clients fortnightly. And so there's a rhythm. We know what's going on. I know the people. I know what the stuff is. So my view is external, but it's enough inside the business to make a difference.
Yeah, enough context.
Rather than bleating at the pub to your mate and they go, if I could just fire everybody. That might not be the best advice.
Yeah, totally. That's a really good point. So So what do you find like these days is your biggest challenge? Like when you're going around operating, you're working in this new world, you're bringing your wife into your business, and you guys are going to be growing it and expanding. What gets you excited? But what is the biggest challenge that you think about?
Yeah, it is. We've obviously gone through a really challenging time as a country, like financially. So a lot of people are very cautious about their money. So obviously I don't work for free.
Yeah.
And the way my fees work is in the first 90 days, we should be able to get a return of at least 12 months of my fees. So we're working together to give you more money, more scale, more freedom, get you a more profitable business. But there's an investment, which, you know, it's often seen as a cost. And they're going, well, actually, if I keep that money here, I don't have to spend it, so it doesn't go out. In my case, we didn't have a choice. We couldn't afford the person, but we couldn't afford not to. We were, 6 figures in debt going south. So that's something I come across as people saying, "Oh, I don't want to spend that money," even though there's a process and it comes out the other end 5, 6, 10-fold. Yeah. So I would say that's the. Is it
an education piece around?
It's an education piece, and it's a it's a psychological and emotional thing, because people are giving up something. Logically, they can see it.
Yeah.
But that expense. So that's quite interesting, and it's just up to me to make it as clear as possible, make people feel comfortable, de-risk as much as I can. And again, I've got another mouth to feed with my wife coming on board, so it's another reason to focus on this.
Yeah, awesome. And
and it's wonderful. Like, it's absolutely wonderful. She left a role, she wasn't happy, she was very unhappy. And now we take our son to daycare together, we pick him up together. And so, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, nice, that's awesome. And what do you think, what do you think it is that, what is the takeaway and process that you think that business owners in today's world, where they're struggling with just the sheer cash flow issues typically, and everything's slower than they need, and then because everyone is cautious, there's this reflexive mimetic dynamic in the market where it's hard, it feels hard, and no one wants to take a risk, right? So it creates a lot of inertia. What is a simple technique that you have used in your own business decision making that helps you get through that inertia?
Yep. So the number one thing is, do you know Stephen Covey's, the Eisenhower matrix?
Yeah.
And so there's important at the top and then not important at the bottom. There's urgent on the left and not urgent on the right. So many people spend their time in quadrant 1, which is important and urgent. And that means they're just chasing their tail. And they're busy, they're doing all the stuff, and they often fall down into urgent but not important. And it just feels like it's important because it's urgent. An email, a phone call, a text, a notification.
Yeah.
Where they don't spend the time, and this is the game changer, is carving off time for that quadrant 2, which is important but not urgent. And this is where the long-term planning comes in. Yeah. This is where I sit down for 2 hours, and that strategy, not worrying time. So I go, I need more clients. Instead of just hoping that they come, okay, who are my top 10 clients and who looks like them? And I'm going to make time to first research who they are, and then I'm going to work out where they are, and then I'm going to work out a way to contact them and show them how good I am, show them my case studies, etc., etc. So I'm working on a focused, powerful way. There's a great term, do income generating activities.
Right. Yeah.
And so...
And Mark Cuban's sales cures all, right?
Yes, sales fixes everything.
I guess that you know, there's some nuances around that, like with Mosh, right? When you were talking about that growth and that scale, I guess it did cure everything, but you know, you didn't have that profitability, right? So that's an interesting nuance, right?
That's right. So sales fixes everything, as long as, so there's 4 foundations that I take people through, and if they're not all rock solid, we'll never be able to scale. Sales is at the end, and so sales fixes everything if our marketing is being done to the right people, the right target audience. And that only works if our team are productive and we are efficient and our systems work. And that only works if our margins are correct.
Right.
And we've got the right pricing and the right cost structures in the business. So sales fixes everything as long as the other 3 foundations are in place.
Right.
So it's a beautiful truism that has an asterisk next to it. Yeah.
It is. It's an asterisk. And I think that's it, right? It's like, you know, AI can be real, and we can also misjudge the amount of compute we need to service it. Two things can be true.
Sure, 100%. Right? Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the pod. I've really enjoyed it.
It's been my pleasure. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, man. Cheers.